All right, welcome back, folks. We're back from commercial break here with Pow. And Pow, you were talking about how we can, or how you would apply your street knowledge gained from your earlier years um, into your military life.
Yeah, so I think that in the military, even law enforcement, man, sometimes you don't get a lot of people that that have kind of been in it, right? They hear about it, but they haven't been in it. So you get like little things where maybe like some cultural nuances or maybe just dialect is a big deal. You see that actually with counterterrorism sometimes and with linguists where they may learn a language, right? So I could learn Spanish, but the way that somebody says, maybe a certain word or the dialect they use may not be what you read in a book. It's the same thing when it comes like street knowledge and, the way that, street knowledge and the way that kind of that dynamic happens. So, I was talking to a Department of Justice guy not too long ago, and we're talking about like why Maryland's opiate crisis was so big. And just kind of telling them like, look, the way that you guys approached it was from a different, it's from a completely different like tactic and methodology that was going to be effective. Like I get from a law enforcement perspective, say, right? They saw that, I'll use Maryland as an example. So Percocets got big, right? Percocets got big. So Percocet's an opiate and it's a painkiller. So people started doing pain pills. Then the hustle was people would hit Florida, get a bunch of prescriptions from some real crappy doctors. They'd party all week. They'd get a bunch of prescriptions or scripts. They'd come back to Maryland and they'd find some clinics, and the clinics would either honor those scripts or they wouldn't. Certain ones definitely would, right? So now you've got this notebook full of prescriptions that you got from Florida. You and like 10, 20 buddies went down to Miami, you partied. They just said, hey, look, man, I'm going to sell you each script for $50. Cool, whatever. So, you take those, you take all those prescriptions, you get them filled legitimately because these clinics honored them, and now you hustle pills, right? So the way that Maryland did it was they said, okay, they caught wind of it. Said, okay, we got to shut down these pain clinics. So they did in like one fell swoop. They shut down the pain clinics. Awesome. Cop, to anybody else, that makes sense. They didn't see that second and third order effect. They don't see that the power vacuum. And when we think power vacuum, right, we think mobster, maybe the Godfather, the captain. He gets killed, so somebody has to come up and rise up to take power. Well, it's the same thing with the drug game. So, you take away Percocets, you take away Oxy, you take away Roxicets. That's illegal. So they didn't account for the heroin that was going to come in. So when I'm telling them these things, and I'm like, hey, look, this is the game. This is how it works. This is, the problem. They were kind of like, what? Tell them about crack. Crack, the way crackheads or crack dealers used to do it back in the day, they get a crack house. And for anybody who doesn't know, right, the browner the crack you get, the better, right? The whiter it is, the shittier it is. So you'd have the butters or the crack in one pocket. You have, say, Excedrin or some caffeinated formula in your right pocket. You'd hit a crack house, sell your rocks, be some good butter. They'd smoke it. You start seeing that lip turn blue. I got them now. You reach into the other pocket, you sell them Excedrin. You sell them some sort of caffeine because they can't tell the difference. They're chasing that first high of the day. So once that starts wearing off, they don't have that first high anymore, and they've been smoking friggin' caffeine basically or Excedrin, you go back to the actual crack. So like these little things people don't get. They don't get the dialect. They don't know if you're walking on the streets and you're like, man, this dude tried to sell me some butter. Hey, man, he's not selling you Parquet, brother. He's trying to sell you some crack. So the street game, street smarts helped with everything. military and everything, because cultural nuances are a big thing too, right? So, you know, for us, it's very black and white. You know, when you're, here's a good example. In Africa, you know, they say if you want to meet at, like, say 5, like, let's meet at 5. That might be 5:30, 5:45, whatever, right? But if they say, hey, look, we're going to meet at 5 by the white man's time or by the white man's watch, what does that mean? What white man's watch? Like, that means that you can't be late, right? That's a cultural nuance that he's going to pick up on unless you've been there for a while and you actually kind of immerse yourself in that dialect or maybe that culture. So yeah, that stuff definitely helps.
Nice, man. Well, I know that, you know, to get away from the military stuff for a little bit, and by the way, thank you for your service. I want to ask you about your new venture, you know, and the audience can see it right behind you. It says the Compound. You're a new owner operator of this new academy in Washington, and I was hoping you could talk about that, because I myself am very passionate brown belt in jiu-jitsu, and I hope to have my own academy one day, and I don't have the slightest clue what it takes to open or start an academy. All I know is how to teach classes and how to teach some techniques, and I'm getting better at that, but I don't know anything about the business side. And I was, you know, you're brand new to this process. You guys just opened with your grand opening. I was hoping that you could shed some light, shed some advice on my ignorant mind, and enrich me a little bit.
All right, well, here goes nothing, right? So yeah, opened the Compound BJJ Muai-Thai Combatives. Yeah, man, the truth is I didn't know shit either. Man, you know, in the military, right? So in the military, you have every job that you could possibly think of as a civilian. For the most part, you have in the military, right? The difference is in the Air Force specifically, with everywhere, you have command positions, right? So, you know, maybe a battalion commander, a wing commander, a group commander. That commander is generally, you know, going to be a lieutenant colonel, a colonel, a general, whatever it is. I saw in the military that they'll make a pilot, a cargo pilot, in charge of, like, let's say, cybercom, which is like computer defense and all this shit, right? Or they'll make a fighter pilot in charge of an intelligence squadron. Like, what does that fighter pilot have to do with an intelligence squadron? He's never freaking analyzed anything in his life or her life. They know management, they know leadership, and they know how to just they know how to lead, and they know how to organize. So, man, I took a leap, man. I said, you know, well, fuck, if they can make a cargo pilot in charge of, you know, no knock on him, by the way, or them, you know, but if they can do that, and that command still works and it does well, then shit, I can do it too. So, you know, so I took the leap, man. Yeah, it's a process. I didn't know, I knew as much as I could, right? You know, it's kind of like having a kid. You can do all the research you want. You can say, hey, man, I'm not prepared. But until you just actually get in there and you do it, you make it work, right? So, so that's kind of how we came about it. You know, there's a lot of reasons why we did it. You know, I think what differs me from other places, and I see it from a lot of other gyms too, you know, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way at all. I'm as humble in this as possible. The truth of the matter is, I'm a third-degree blue belt that's been doing jiu-jitsu on and off for 12 years. You know, blown knees, deployments, everything, and it's like I feel like I still have that the soldier's mentality, right? I still have the members' mentality, where I understand that, hey, man, membership costs are high sometimes, man, and you get the McDojos, you get the you know, the package deals. Hey, man, you do 2 classes a week, it'll cost this. But if you do 4 classes a week, it'll cost that. Hey, if you do unlimited classes, it'll cost this. And kind of like I alluded to earlier, being a kid, knowing that I couldn't afford that, I missed that opportunity. So my mission was so much different than I think maybe I'll just say half of black belts kind of open a place for it, right? Because I think, you know, you get in the game and you're doing jiu-jitsu for, you know, let's say an average 10, 15 years before you open your own place, right? Because there's like real 3 tracks for a martial artist. There's like movies or, you know, DVDs, online presence. There's own a business, or there's like hardcore competition. You know what I mean? And if you don't make it in movies, or, you know, you're not this big competitor that's getting all these endorsements, or you don't save enough money because life as a 1099 black belt or whatever belt, you don't have benefits, you don't have all these things. It's tough, man. So how do you save money to start a business? I said, you know what? There's no time like right now. And as a government contractor, you know, we got our overnight, man. I went from making, you know, a set amount of money. We got pregnant. I say we. My wife got pregnant. I'm not gonna take any credit for it. You know, we got pregnant, and overnight, man, they said, hey, look, the contract changed. We're cutting your salary 30%. I got 3 kids, right? And I'm like, shit. The government's slashing contracts. And then you saw it just this past year. Government didn't even pay the damn Coast Guard for 30 days. They can't come into an agreement. So it's a testament to how unstable shit can get. And government's supposed to be like this super stable, like, job. I mean, hell, I was deployed in 2011 and under the last administration, and the civilians got furloughed while they were deployed. We're like, shit, what are we gonna do? And, you know, because you have good people, they're like, look, I'm still work, man. It sucks. But so I was like, you know, I'm gonna start a damn gym. I'm gonna do it right. I know what it's like being in the trenches. I know what it's like having to play this damn game where it's like, oh, you know, X amount of dollars for this, X amount of dollars for that, and you know, you don't see the work, right? You're just paying, and they just see you as like this dollar, this number, this member. I was like, no, I'm just going to do it right. My mission is going to be that. My mission is going to be intrinsically, I'm going to do this as a member, right? Like, I'm going to set my business to be a member, and I'm going to set the goal of the gym to be different from everybody else. Because I kind of have my own theories about jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, which, you know, again, being humble, man, I don't claim to act like I know everything, or I see the ins and outs, but I definitely notice certain things. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to do it right. And fortunately enough, you know, I still have my day job. I have a wife that's working here at the gym full time. But man, it was a process. We signed the lease April 6th of 2018, and our first day of official opening was April 1st, 2019. Being a general contractor, bro, you do not want to do it. It's the worst thing I've ever done. I've been on 9 deployments, something like that. I've never felt this stress like I have. Granted, right, there's a different stress, right? It's like, oh, there's rockets. Oh, there's like somebody trying to come across the gate or whatever it is, right? It's like, oh, that's different. But here, it's like you got to rely on other people. They're only motivated by money. They're not motivated by oath. They're not motivated by the mission. They're only motivated by that contract. And you got to corral people, man. It's like, hey, dude, you said you'd be done by Monday. It's now like 3 weeks later. What's the deal? Oh, no, I got these issues. So tough. It was real tough, man. But here we are, official.
Congratulations on your official opening. That's awesome. So did I hear this right, that you said that you opened this up with a different kind of business model, in that you're not like touting yourself as like a head instructor or anything? It's sort of like a members only gym, and you as owner are one of the members, and you value the input of all the members as far as like what the programming looks like, what the fees are going to look like, and all that stuff comes down to like a membership.
Yeah, absolutely. So out here, You know, the prices are crazy. And, you know, you have 30-something jiu-jitsu schools in like the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, which is great for jiu-jitsu. But the cost of living here in the DC metro area is also really high. So what I saw was like, you'd have these things where it was very much so ran like a business, right? Because
Yeah, that's how it is all over here too. And I've trained at like, I don't know, 15 different gyms, and maybe 13 of those have been all about the business, and 2 treat me more like a family. And I gravitate more towards those gyms that make me feel like I'm part of a family rather than the business.
that's exactly it, man. So, you know, the way we did it here, we don't have an affiliation. Oddly enough, and I'm not, my God, I would never compare ourselves to like Studio 540, right? It's like legendary Studio 540. That being said, their mission statement's very similar. It's like non-affiliated. It is just this lab where people from all lineages and affiliations can come and do jiu-jitsu, right? And kind of share their knowledge. And that's really all that we're trying to do, right? We're just trying to get better. So we have no affiliation here. Our black belt is he's a really awesome black belt from GF team, Alexandre Bueno de Oliveira. We have Muay Thai instructors that have been doing Muay Thai in and around DC and Maryland, man, for decades. Just a ton of knowledge there. But the way we did our mission statement, so we kind of did it twofold, right? So the jiu-jitsu mission, or the martial arts mission, right, is to not have it to where you feel like you're going to go to a specific lineage and you're going to learn that style. And you see that in jiu-jitsu, right? You see that, I mean, just look back in the day, man, there's trends. And again, I'm not being disrespectful, man, but it's what I've observed. And if anybody wants to hit me up personally and say, hey, look, dude, you got it all wrong, I will absolutely put out a post and say, look, maybe I had it wrong. But this is what I've noticed, for right, wrong, or indifferent. You have trends, and you have, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. It's very fundamental. It's, my God, it's thank God for the Gracies for spreading Jiu-Jitsu to what we have now. You know, thank God for Hoist Gracie and showing the utility of it. But then, you get, as you start going, right, like the early 90s, late 90s, you see, maybe you start seeing footlocks. Then you see, X guard. So now people are playing X guard. You get somebody else. Now it's like, oh, lapel guards are interesting. So now everybody's playing X guard or lapel guard. Spider guard's new. Lasso guard's new. Now you see the Danaher Death Squad. They're doing leg locks, right? Eddie Cummings, Gary Tonin, Nikki and Gordon Ryan. You get all these people now. Heel hooks, leg locks, kind of like that style is getting, popular. And Planets, obviously, it's been 10th Planet doing their thing. And I saw in jiu-jitsu here, at least, that you go to a certain place and they say, oh man, that's Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, or oh man, that's sport Jiu-Jitsu. Man, you guys don't learn self-defense. All you guys do is IBJJF competitions. So they would. You get these things where like, oh man, I got to go to this other school to learn. They've got a really great X guard game there, maybe 50-50. They specialize in 50-50 because that's Ryan Hall's, in Virginia. And I was like, man, dude, not only as a member, but like as a business owner, if I'm giving somebody $150 a month, however much the membership is, I feel like you shouldn't have to go somewhere else and pay a mat fee and learn that. I feel like it should be at the place you train at. You're here. This is a good environment. You know people, and you're not going to walk into somebody else's gym like, who the hell is this dude or this girl coming here try to smash us? Like, we'll show them what's up, because you get that dynamic. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to affiliate. I'm going to promote Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, not Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, not sport Jiu-Jitsu, I'm going to promote Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where the compound being the name, right? It's like the lab. It's where everything mixes. Hell, we picked a Kraken, octopus for, because of its adaptability, its ability to change color, its ability to change shape almost. You should have kind of like from here, my vision for jiu-jitsu, or even for Muay Thai for that matter, should be that you learn everything here, and you should be a jack of all trades, and you should master in what you want to master, right? So man, if you're 215, good luck being a Berimbolo expert. You're not going to be the next Mayao. But dude, if you're 110 pounds, you're the next, whatever. It's like, okay, maybe Berimbolo's my thing. Maybe half guard's my thing. Maybe open guard's my thing. So that's what we wanted to do here. So yeah, man, that's kind of what we wanted to do for the martial arts aspect of things. For the business thing, man, you're absolutely right. I wanted to make sure that I didn't lose sight of being a member. And most of all, I didn't want to lose sight of the fact that I'm a parent. So you're paying $380 a month for your kids to go to frickin' class 5 times a week, 6 times a week. Like, wow, why? I got to take a damn second job just to get my kids developed and give them the opportunity to learn how to defend themselves. Why should I do that, man? And, I just kind of had this, like, I don't know, this intrinsic mission to make sure that I make it available for everybody. I don't enforce you to buy my geese. I don't enforce you to, to do X, Y, and Z. I just say, hey, look, it's simple. This is the individual rate. This is a family membership. You get unlimited everything, man. You come here and you train. Dude, if you come from another school, if you're not on our competition team, wear your patch. I'm not even going to make you take it off, because if you come from a different lineage, and say you're right, so we both learned under Peter Yaakov, Ozzie, Master Sylvia Bering. You shouldn't feel like if that person comes here and they have a Bering Jiu-Jitsu patch or an Alliance patch and they're crushing you, you should know that I need to brush up on whatever Alliance is good at. I need to brush up on whatever Bering Jiu-Jitsu is good at, because that's my weak spot. So man, rep your school, rep your lineage. At the end of the day, man, it's jiu-jitsu. It's jiu-jitsu. There's no secrets. I go on YouTube. I still do moves that I learned from Master Silvio, man. The Toriano, the neon belly, to baseball choke, to lifting up on the lapel, back take. That's like my thing, man. I love that move. It's so smooth, and the way he teaches is awesome. I want to give that to other people. Because man, that's the beauty of it, man. It's the beauty of martial arts. It's not a secret Coca-Cola recipe, man.
Yeah, I love how you're bringing people together to share knowledge, and I see that too, like the splits in lineages, and I see jiu-jitsu athletes box themselves into a specific lineage and wonder why they're not competing well against all these other lineages. I'm a big fan of being well-rounded and understanding a number of different systems. And I love how you, I think you said it was a Kraken. Is that right? Is your logo? Yeah. So I was going to ask you that too, because all of its little tentacles to me means, you're bringing together all these different styles of jiu-jitsu under one umbrella, to make one functional system. So all these little components are essential to that entire system. I just love that aspect.
No, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, and obviously the eight tentacles, man. It's an homage, if you will, to Muay Thai. Art of 8 limbs, man. Hell, I'm half Thai, so I kind of owe that. And I love Muay Thai, man. It's just it's such a beautiful, just absolutely savage martial art, and it's important. So yeah, man.
Yeah, I did Muay Thai for 10 years or so. It's by far my favorite stand-up art, not just in its effectiveness, but in its beauty too. I know Tony Jaa was trained more as a movie-style Muay Thai person, but you just watch some of his cinematic expression of the art. And oh yeah, man, it gives me the chills every time I see him moving, like, and picturing myself being able to do that. And so, as you're talking about your business and the way you're approaching your mission and everything, it reminds me a lot of Bruce Lee's philosophy of not being tied to any one particular style, but taking the most effective pieces of each one to make your own artistic expression of what you think is most effective and what works best for you. I think that's for sure a component that's not really looked at as much as it should be. I mean, for me, I have a number of injuries in my history, so I have to completely change my style of jiu-jitsu around my injuries. I can't do rubber guard all the time like I used to because both my knees, right? So I adjust and I change my style, and now I maybe incorporate more leg locks or more something else. And I love how you're really embracing sort of that same philosophy that Bruce Lee talked about. I think that's what made him so prolific in his his teaching of martial arts. And I got to ask you because I think you're a little bit older than me, but I got to ask you, how did you get first started in martial arts? For me, it was like watching like Bruce Lee movies, Ninja Turtles, Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal as a kid, watching those and really wanting to move like that, wanting to be able to, have mastery over my mind and my body like that, but also not have to be afraid out in the world. How did you get your start in martial arts?
So, man, so when I guess it's kind of, I was born into it, man. I'm Asian. It's so, I said, right. So, junior karate was a big thing. Karate was a big thing back in the day. So, that's what I wanted to do. And being bullied, you're trying to always figure out how a smaller Asian kid can like stand up to like these bigger, more physically capable bullies, right? And so, I kind of always had this desire to want to learn how to fight. And I just kind of like trial and error, right? You kind of get into it, you get into that like 15-second scuffle real quick in the bathroom or like while you're waiting in the lunch line. And then that's your 15-minute lesson for the day. And maybe you get that 2 or 3 times a week, So for martial arts, man, being a kid, I remember maybe I was 3rd grade or 4th grade, and I didn't know about Muay Thai, and my dad taught me how to kick. He's Thai, so he just kind of naturally he knows Muay Thai. He was never a competitor, but he knows Muay Thai. But he would always teach me how to kick, how to knee, how to elbow, punch. Never to the level of tutelage, right, that a normal Muay Thai crew would teach you. But I remember taking this VHS tape, and it was called Muay Thai. And you plug in. I took it to show and tell, and we put it in. And the first like 20 minutes were these old black and white videos of like Muay Thai fighters, like old school Muay Thai, right? Like, the Tony Jaa, like the old school, you're in threes kind of thing.
Right,
and
with rap and hemp and things like that.
Exactly. Still wearing the Mongol, like, you know what I mean? Like old school fights. And then it would cut to like Lumpini fights. And then it would cut to like black backdrop, and they do it in slow motion where, the dude's doing Y crew, or maybe, he's going for a knee and somebody's jumping on the knee, coming down for the, the drop elbow, right? Like beautiful art. And I remember I was just like, man, that's super cool. I want to learn. We grew up in DC, like Southeast DC. There's no Muay Thai schools. I had to learn from this damn video. So I practiced doing that. But then, my uncle Buddy Harrison, who owns Old School Boxing in Maryland, he always boxed, and all my other friends boxed. So I learned how to box a little bit. Just that was the thing. If you got on the ground here, it's like get up ain't no wrestling. You got to throw hands, right? So I was like, oh, shit, I guess I got to learn how to throw hands. So that was kind of like the first, if you want to say martial art, right? Like the first thing I kind of practiced. I actually didn't learn jiu-jitsu until Afghanistan 2008.
So what was that a bunch of deployments already in, and then you're
That was my
finally
third deployment. So I did Iraq twice, 2007 and 2008, and then I deployed for the second time in 2008. After I got back from Iraq, maybe like 2 months, 3 months, they're like, hey, look, we need you to go back out, do some stuff. So I was like, okay, cool. So I went right back out the door. I took another deployment. So I remember I'm in the gym. I'm not working. We're off. There's no days off, by the way. So, they make you push hard. Why our deployments were generally shorter than most. Can you give me 1 second? How you doing, man? I was in I'm in Afghanistan. I'm working out, and I see this guy. He's hitting the bags, and he's working some stuff. And I said, hey man, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I'm an MMA fighter. I was like, oh, cool. What are you doing here? He goes, oh, yeah, I'm deployed, but I do MMA. I was like, dude, could you teach me some stuff, man? I remember watching UFC and Hoist Gracie, and I'm like, dude, it's a smaller guy, and he's crushing like Dan Severn and Chemo and all these people. So I'm like, dude, that's like, I want to learn. So he started teaching me jiu-jitsu, and from that point, man, I just fell in love with it. So from 2008, we rolled every night that we weren't working. We got on the mat. It was no gi. Nobody had a gi. He was a blue belt. I learned from there, man, and I fell in love with it.
And how did you hook up with Professor Yaakov? We had him on the podcast a number of weeks ago, and it was a great podcast. If you haven't heard it yet, it's about. We talked a lot about black belt mindset versus champion mindset and things like that. How did you guys hook up?
So Pete, he was our combatives instructor at the unit that I work at. So the military is funny. So people, so they'll tell you in the military you have a lot of great shooters, people that are functionally sound at shooting a weapon. They suck at fighting. So, the unit saw the utility, and they saw the need to learn combatives, or at least give their soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, a baseline on how to fight. And Peter's his approach to it was really great. The approach to it actually is kind of how I help teach the class now. So that's how we linked up, man. He was teaching combatives. It was 5x5 mission ready, business, just company. And I was like, hey, I really like this stuff. It's jiu-jitsu. I did some jiu-jitsu, never took a formal class. So what can I do? He was like, look, you know what? Oddly enough, nobody really took advantage of the fact that Pete was this 4th degree black belt, and we have our own personal black belt to teach classes all day, basically. And he's not just teaching jiu-jitsu, he's teaching combatives, right? He's teaching striking and things. Because nobody really wants to get their ego checked. When you're in the community, you're in a soft community, nobody really wants to be like, oh man, I'm this big bad, you name it, operator, right? And I got this finance kid who's 20, and he's under me, he's on top of me, I can't seem to buck him off. I'm going Mach snot and 100 miles an hour, but this kid keeps choking. Like, nobody wants that come into reality. So it just didn't come. So I had Peter, my personal black belt that taught me jiu-jitsu, man. And, we built some people, 3 or 4 of us, 5 of us. And man, it was great. So that's how I linked up with Peter, man. He taught us combatives at the unit, and man, it was just great tutelage. The way he teaches is great.
It's so surprising to me to hear from you that combatives wasn't just a part of your training coming up in the military, that it seems like it was like this optional thing that you guys had to seek out if you saw a need. Do you know, are the communities, are the special operations communities starting to come around to the idea that, hey, you know, you may need to know hand to hand in a building or something? Are you seeing more of it?
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the thing, right? So you got to think about the way the military's doctrine is. It's a lot outside of the special operations community is very Cold War doctrinal, right? So like, you know, I won't say it is, but it's almost like hold fire, you know, then reload. You got the other people on the other side, right? So that's what the military trains for. Conventional warfare. Conventional warfare, tanks, airplanes. You have a M4 carbine, or a 50 cal that's going to reach you at a mile, 2 miles if you're a badass Canadian sniper, right? So you have that, but what they don't and they weren't ready for was counterterrorism, where you're going to be in the middle of an Afghan village or in the middle of Iraq in a hallway with, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 terrorists or, you know, bad guys and spirits, whatever you want to call them. So special operations sees utility in it, right? Because we're the ones kicking in the door, clearing a room. You know, you have to go in, hopefully your intelligence is good and you know that there's 3 or 4 people there before you hit the house. Or maybe you're just doing a CRP or a combat reconnaissance patrol and you get into a TIC or a troops in contact, right? You get into a firefight. But special operations knows. And so Marines have always had it. The Army used to have it, right? Line training is what the Marines used to call it, right? It was like old school, like everything ended up in this like Marine Corps hoorah heel stomp. Like it was almost like heel stomp to the face. But it was just a little bit like scripted, right? But now, especially with Matt Larson, the founder of the Modern Army Combatives Program, Black Belt Hall of Famer, 4th Degree Alliance, Black Belt, just all around badass. When he developed the Modern Army Combatives Program, or MACP, I think it was a little bit more instilled in people that you have to learn how to fight as well, because if you are in a village and you are maybe you're engaging with a tribal elder and you're this close, that M4 carbine isn't the right thing, or maybe that even a 9mm bullet isn't the right thing. Maybe the best thing is to just control the person. I mean, God, people give the military a bad rap. They think that everybody just wants to shoot people. Like nobody wants. I don't think anybody really wants to just take his life. They generally don't want to live with that conscience, right? Like, oh my God. At the end of the day, man, that person that you're fighting, like they believe in what they believe in as much as we believe in what we believe in. So the perception's a reality, right? That's like the mind thing, right? It's like their perception is their reality, and they perceive us as the bad guy. We perceive them as the bad guy. But either way, you don't really necessarily want to take their life, right? So combatives, or learning how to fight and detain people is control them is kind of more towards what we're looking at. That being said, there's still this rub, and the rub is, how do we learn combatives, or how do we learn to fight without risking injury?
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, right? You've got bad knees. I blew both my knees out. My last knee injury, I blew out my ACL, and I blew my MCL from, typical spaz, the proverbial spaz white belt,
Yep.
right? So, but how do you do that with people that, how do you train them in, whether it's jiu-jitsu or MMA or combatives, whole bunch of type personalities, how do you get them to train not go full bore and stay healthy when you've invested $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, maybe $1 million of training, shooting, ancillary training, driving school, all this other stuff, and expect them to still be deployable, right? So that's the rub. And still, you still have the people, man, that just don't want to learn because they don't want to get that ego check. So it's kind of how it works.
Yeah, I have a friend who trains at our gym sporadically, and he's Air Force Special Forces. And when he comes in and he trains, he tells me, well, he says, he gets his own combatives training on base a little bit, but he's kind of like, if my commanding officer knew that I was out here training MMA in the community with you guys, and he doesn't know you guys, then he would be really pissed off. Like, it's almost like I also had a friend back in the day that was an Olympic skier, and his coach would not allow him to pursue his other passion, which was football, for risk that, if you injure yourself in something else that you're having fun, then you're not any good to us, for the team or whatever. He ended up becoming both an Olympic skier, downhill skier, and played for the New York Jets. Football player. Yeah, so he kind of gave them the bird and did what he wanted, and it worked out good for him. But yeah, man, I see what you're talking about. That's really cool though that they're starting to pick up a little bit more on the combatives. Because you're right, when I think of like an elite military operative, I don't necessarily think of someone who's I definitely don't think of someone who's like an infantry soldier just like pushing a line. I think of someone who's silent, who may not even, doesn't even want to fire their weapon at all on the mission and still achieve the mission objective. You may have to go in there completely silently, choke some people out. And these are my dream fantasies, imagining this, choking people out on the way, kind of like a modern day ninja, and only using your firearm as a very last resort because, like, you may draw attention that way or something, or even my fantasies of zombie apocalypses, things like that. Like, you don't want to alert anyone around you to your sound, and that's something that jiu-jitsu gives you. I also like how you said, training in something that can be safe. I grew up. My martial arts started with Taekwondo and the striking arts, and even Muay Thai. I mean, it's hard to train. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's hard to train those striking arts with minimal damage or risk for injury. I mean, I can't tell you how many broken noses I've had, how many bruised shins, and like can't walk the next day from striking, or even being knocked unconscious. Like, that's one of the most terrible things that can happen to your body or your brain from martial arts. And hard sparring, all that stuff. In jiu-jitsu, I love that we can spar hard and still maintain a level of safety. Like, when I think of jiu-jitsu, I don't think of just submissions. I think of, like you said, like controlling people to a point where, maybe you control somebody and don't tap them out or snap their limb or their ligaments, but you just control them in a position until the police can get there with doing minimal harm. Or maybe you can control somebody and scan the room to make sure that his buddies aren't coming after you and just hold him there. You can talk somebody out of a conflict as well, and using
That's why they call it the gentle art, right? I mean, it's as gentle as your opponent wants it to be.
Exactly. But you always have the capability of taking it to that point of doing damage. And really, with jiu-jitsu, I find that you can damage somebody's body much, much more than you can with most striking arts with very little effort, So someone could completely lose the use of their arm in jiu-jitsu if applied correctly. And so you can disable your opponent and get away,
Yeah, so that's the rub, right? With striking and which in grappling arts, because in MMA or say striking, it's the rub with steroids too, right? So like in jiu-jitsu, a choke sucks or an armbar sucks, but you always have the option to tap. You tap to a right roundhouse to the freaking head, or you can't tap to that. Yeah, right? So yeah, it's a lot more difficult to practice striking arts than it is grappling, especially, jiu-jitsu. That's the beauty of it, right? It's like, it works for you. You got bad knees, or maybe you're just 60, 70 years old, man. You don't have to, you can play a smash game, and jiu-jitsu works the way you want jiu-jitsu to work for you. You don't have to be perfect with your forms, like Taekwondo, right? So we had Clever in Taekwondo, my oldest son, and your forms have to be perfect. They have to be very strong. You throw a punch like this and you block like this. In jiu-jitsu, hey man, maybe that lapel drag isn't for you. So you make it work for you. So that is the beauty of it.
Yeah. So I want to switch gears a little bit. The podcast is all about really engaging with consciousness, with one mind talking to another mind. And I want to dig a little bit deeper into your consciousness or the way you experience life and the way you think about the mind, and specifically warrior mindset. You're definitely a modern day warrior with your military background, with your jiu-jitsu background. You're also a father of many. That's a warriorship undertaking in and of itself. But yeah, if you could elaborate a little bit and talk about how you think about warrior mindset, and yeah, how do you think about consciousness on that level?
So for us, it's like at least for me, right? The warrior mindset to me is, it depends on how you approach it, right? So you're right. So you mentioned Peter's podcast before. You have like, the champion mindset. You have, right, these things, and for me, it's more so. It comes from like just being a martial artist, in the sense that you're not a martial artist just on the mats or in competition or in combat. You're a martial artist in the sense that you always are striving to get better. So that's what I think of, like, the warrior mindset. It's like no days off, man. Nas said sleep is the cousin of death. He said, I'll sleep when I'm dead. That's kind of how I see it. Every day, I think to be a warrior, to have like, maybe to be a man, or just somebody who wants to just improve, you have to spend those times improving. I always tell myself, do something hard every day. It doesn't have to be big, right? It could be something simple, like just walk to the mailbox barefoot, whether it's cold, raining, hot, whatever. Just deal with it. Be calculated. Maybe just take a cold shower real quick. Don't wait until it gets warm. Those things, that just push yourself out of your comfort zone, but something that's going to make you feel as though you're pushing yourself further than your comfort zone. That's that warrior mindset. You got to always strive to be better. You got to have kind of that carry a big stick, but walk quietly kind of mindset, right? Where I don't know if the background noise is getting to you, but you got to have that thing where you have to be a beacon for other people to feed off of, and say, man, that dude's always hustling, man. I gotta get off my ass. I can't. If I wait, then somebody like that is gonna be at it more than I am. And whether you're competing, you're not competing, you're practicing, man. If you want to be as good as you can be, you kind of have to have that mindset where somebody else is training harder than you. They want it more than you, so you better put in the work now.
Yeah, I like how you when you're talking about warrior mindset, you're talking about like this forward drive, or this intrinsic drive to always be better, always better yourself, and not just with the martial part of our practice, right? Not just with the combatives, the jiu-jitsu or the Muay Thai, but also in life as a father or as a student, or whatever you're doing for your work or you're in your relationships, just always trying to be better. I don't see that in everybody. I don't think everybody has a warrior mindset, and I think that like you said, like part of that warrior mindset is just accepting uncomfortability, always, or never being satisfied with where you're at, and never wanting to be comfortable. You said pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. I think that's huge. And I think a lot of people these days, probably some people listening right now, feel really uncomfortable pushing themselves out of their comfort zone. And I feel like a lot of people are just comfortable not venturing out, and doing those things that scare them, doing those things that are challenging. They're just okay sitting there and not doing that, and that's okay. I don't understand it because I have that warrior mindset where everything's all good, everything's perfect. I love the way my life is going, but I am always looking to be better at everything I do, and I love how you bring that up.
Yeah, man, it's the complacency issue, and you said you're absolutely right. It's trying to force yourself out of the comfort zone, and and you see it in martial arts, or you see it in old school adages, right? No pain, no gain. It's not just because it rhymes; it's because it makes sense, man. If it hurts, it's probably good for you, and I think all too often, martial artists, practitioners, we get it, right? Like or people that are physical, we get that. Hey, man, it's gonna hurt after I do this. We'll just call it powerlifting. I'm gonna do 30 reps, 30 squats, and tomorrow I know I'll be sore. But you know that you're gonna reap that benefit. Farmers, they plant the seed, they can't hurry up and reap those benefits until maybe next season, until that crop grows. But you have to be able to be willing to put in the work now and understand that, man, it is going to pay off for you. You got to get out of your comfort zone because it's good for you. Especially here in the States, and maybe it's because I'm a first-generation immigrant, right? It's like it's so nice here. Everything's so nice.
Yeah, dude. I was just sorry to interrupt. I was just gonna say that too. That we live in a pleasure-driven society. Our society pushes this idea that everybody needs to be happy all the time and feeling pleasure all the freaking time. And so when people feel uncomfortable, they feel like something's wrong with them. And that's when they come to see me, as a therapist or as a mental performance coach. People come to me and be like, why am I not happy all the time? And I have to tell them, sorry for the bad news, but life is not about being happy all the time. It's a balance between the good and the bad. And the challenges that you're going through are necessary for you to grow into the person that you are going to be, that you have no idea who that is, right? I think that strife and that challenge is the essential component that a lot of people miss out on because of our pleasure-driven society, and that society says it's okay to do that. It's not, yeah.
Well, you said, the word you said, it's necessary, right? It's necessary for growth. You don't get better without that obstacle, right? Like you gotta work at it, man. And Joe Rogan, one of my favorite podcasters ever, he says, it's so nice here because we're not like fighting off polar bears and shit, because that's how nice it is, man. And I get it, right? Like you can always be better, but when you're so comfortable, you get cool with it, man. You get complacent, and you're like, oh man, I can budget this. I can ration off my energy. I know what I can spend, what I can't, whether it's physically, mentally, financially, right? I know what my limit is, and I'm good with just that. Like, no. How do we get better as a people? And I think the other part, man, I don't know if you see this with your clients, but I think it's super difficult where, even when you and I were growing up, this is kind of a testament to what bullying was back then. But, back then you dealt with people in your community, right? You dealt with people in school. You went home. That's it. You can sit in your room for the rest of the night, go home, go to sleep, and go to school the next day, Monday through Friday. Now it follows you everywhere. And now people miss the fact that Snapchat, or maybe that Instagram, it's not even just a canned, that's hard, right? It's hard for people to see that unattainable beauty, that filter. Maybe they don't see that that's not their yacht, that's somebody else's yacht. But they don't see that that picture is literally less than a second in time. Think about that, right? You think, and it's the same way for intelligence or for anything for that matter. You only know what you know right then. That's it. Intelligence should be timely and accurate. And it's only as accurate as what that last shot was, what that last observation was. So with people, you have this really difficult way to separate what reality is and what the internet tells you is reality, where I could see like it's so hard for people to reconcile with what real happiness or real discomfort or what reality is for that matter, because they see 7 billion people. They don't see their demographic, and that's already hard enough. I saw it before the internet, before Al Gore gifted us with the internet. I saw how difficult it was just to be a middle school kid. Now, you're a middle school kid that just got hashtagged and went viral, and your shit just got 1.4 million views. You got to deal with all those comments now. It's not just your class of 26. It's your Instagram of 50,000 followers. That's got to be hard mentally for people to deal with and make that very distinguished line of delineation, like that line of demarcation where it's like, from this point, I have to recognize that everything else is bullshit. I have to be here and do what I can do, because managing your own life's hard enough. But when you're trying to manage your life as everybody else sees you should be managing it, it's got to be super tough, man. I don't know what that's like as somebody who's a mental health provider or that deals with it. You know?
It's a challenge for sure, but I mean, just like the military training that you received for your particular job, I feel like I was adequately trained to be able to deal with that sort of thing, you know? So yeah, I have a lot of stuff going on. I like my life super full. I'll be starting a PhD program in the fall. Just got married. Like, all these great things are happening, and my life is very full. And so managing it is very intense. But I have the skills, I have the skill sets, the tools to be able to compartmentalize my life quite a bit. And when I'm at work, I'm at work, and I'm there for the client, even from session to session, from hour to hour. You know, I have to totally jump into somebody else's story and jump from this reality and out, and then take a 10-minute break, and then jump into this person's reality and then out and take a 10-minute break and go take a piss and shove some food down my throat, and then jump into this person's reality, you know. And they can all be different, and people in crisis, and people, you know, the next hour everything's all good. And you know, I deal with addiction all the time, and spiritual crises, and all sorts of things. But you know, we learn a lot about self-care in my education. We learn how important it is to make sure that you take care of yourself first, because you can't help anybody else after that. I learned that in jiu-jitsu too. You know, I'm not an effective coach. I'm not an effective training partner or instructor if I'm all beat up and I can't even move. You know, I have to take care of my body and my own recovery in order to be available to the students. You know, same with my clients. I have to take care of my mind up here before I can be available to help give guidance or provide suggestion to my clients as well.
Yeah, I tell my kids, like, when they're trying to help each other out and, you know, their shit ain't squared away, right? I always say, like, it's super hard. It's super hard to let somebody drink out of your empty cup.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't pour from an empty cup. You got to make sure your shit is good before you try to help anybody else, right? So I guess that's kind of like, you know, that's kind of it, right? You can't force. You have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself first, so that you can also be the best provider. Because if you're not there and you're in a bad place, then what kind of provide, what kind of service are you providing at that point? It's whether it is on the mats or if it's, in a chair or in an office, man, it's, you gotta be careful,
Yeah. And so speaking about, keeping yourself in balance and keeping yourself healthy, and also tied in with the warrior mindset, something that I've been trying to do more of and embrace now more in my mid-30s. I wish I would have thought about this sooner. But trying to bring in or incorporate more practice with some of the softer arts to add to the harder style of the martial arts, right? Martial arts are very physical, some would say very masculine energy is in the martial arts, even though there's amazing females in all martial arts. But that's how I engage my masculine energy, and I have my whole life. So I'm trying to incorporate to be more of a complete, well-balanced warrior, incorporating in some of the softer arts to bring out or to, I guess, nurture the feminine side that I think we all have. As human beings, we all have a masculine and a feminine side. And for me, as a white male in this culture, it's been pushed for my entire life to just be a man and don't cry and don't be emotional and all these things. And I see how invalid that perspective is now, and how I can benefit very, greatly by incorporating that softer side. So for me, practicing the soft arts, for instance, like I've been experimenting with traditional artwork, things like that. I know that the samurai used to do calligraphy right alongside their sword work, and that would make them a better swordsman. And so this idea has been around for a long time. Is there anything in your life that you're trying to incorporate alongside the martial arts to help balance you a little bit?
Yeah. You mentioned calligraphy. I'm big into calligraphy. I say big. Let me rewind that. I like calligraphy. I've got a calligraphy pen. I've got, I've played with calligraphy. I'm big into penmanship. Like handwriting is like this lost art. I think we're all losing because we're so used to typing. I like to write. I like to put pen to paper. That being said, I think what really grounds me the most, and man, I know it sounds so cliche, being a parent. That is the soft martial art for me, man. I've never in my life ever, let me repeat for the audience, ever felt the frustration like I have with parenting. And so I have two boys and one girl. Girl's the middle sister, which damn wine called the middle sister for a reason. And in addition to that, my two oldest are my stepkids. They're my kids, right? But they come from my wife's previous marriage. Being a father, and right, like you said, we're told don't cry, be hard, alpha. Shit, you look like a modern day Viking as it is. Right? So you kind of have this culture instilled in you that hey man, you just got to get after it. Shut up and color. Just get after it. Don't show emotion. These kids, man, it is an everyday lesson for me. And I think it's very much so something that it's not a martial art, but it is absolutely a martial art because you're in combat with what you think you should do. You're in combat with your kid emotionally and mentally because the way you grew up, Shane, or the way that I grew up, maybe the approach that I know works for this situation that is kind of similar, but not. Maybe that's the completely wrong tactic to engage this problem. Maybe me being 215 pounds and, a strapping young lad, maybe that's intimidating to a kid. Maybe that's intimidating to my 5-year-old. Or if I talk to my daughter and I'm raising my voice, yes, in my head, I'm enforcing discipline. But to her, am I setting her up for men to talk to her that way? Like, that's a soft art in itself, because you are forced to take a step back, take that deep breath. It's not martial at all in the sense that it's combat physically, but you have to take the forest for the trees and say, okay, what should I be doing now? And what is this art piece gonna look like when I'm done with it? And that's been probably the best soft art for me. It's been the most challenging. Man, it's the most rewarding thing. It really is, Shane. It's cliche. It really is, man. But it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done, man. Seeing them grow up and having them see what hard work is, as much as I can. And, you know, when I'm tired, they can't see it. And when I had my daughter not too long ago, you know, I was stressing about the business, man. I thought about quitting so many times, man. One night I was tucking her in, because I won't miss that. She said, she goes, pal. And I'm thinking, like, she's like just trying to stay awake. She goes, pal. So, and I'm getting frustrated. Like, what's up, Crimson? She goes, so like, how are you? And I almost lost it. I was like, what? She goes, well, I can see that you seem tired. I just want to make sure you're okay. And man, that right there, I was like, shit. That's your art piece right there, man. Like, I could die happy, like, knowing that she had it in herself to ask a question like that, because she's observant enough to be emotionally intelligent and say, hey, look, man, maybe even my dad, my stepdad, you know, maybe he needs somebody to ask. And that's really nice.
Yeah, man, your kids really are, if you think about it, your greatest masterpiece. I think for any parent that chooses to take on that challenging piece of artwork. And Callie and I, you know, I hope you get to meet Callie someday, but my wife Callie and I hope to have lots of little Shanes running around on the jiu-jitsu mat. It's going to be great having you know, and I really hope that I can welcome my kids into this gentle art just like you have, and make it a family thing. I think that would be so awesome. That's what I envision, you know, having the LeMaster competitive jiu-jitsu team out there on the mat, and you know, their mom out on the side yelling out armbar, you know, because she does jiu-jitsu too. It would be freaking awesome. But actually, the main reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast is in relation to this next question, because it'll probably be our last question, because I know, you know, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But the main reason why I had you on this podcast is because, you know, I met you a number of years ago, and you and I haven't been in physical proximity since that time. We've only really met that one time, and I've always felt this connection to you, like we're brothers, you know, and that doesn't happen very often in life. So I think that's awesome. And so I follow you through social media, and that's how we stay in contact. And really what I see from you on your social media, especially during like this whole process of putting the compound together, is really your playful mindset. You know, here I know you, I met you, you know, like you said, 215, big strapping young Asian man with a intense military background. And yet when I see you interact with your kids and your wife online with social media, you have the most playful family life that I think anyone could ever hope for. And I certainly hope for. How do you maintain, or how do you develop such a playful mindset, you know, having come from the background that you did, and how do you maintain that? I struggle with that. I feel like I'm really shy when it comes to taking that risk, going outside my comfort zone, and like putting on a performance or something. And maybe that'll change when I have kids and I have to be forced into imaginary games with them. But right now, like, if you asked me to do an impression of somebody, I'd probably be too shy to do that, you know? And then I see you and your wife like doing all this hilarious shit online. Like, I really admire that playful mindset and how you maintain that. I think it's really important for overall happiness. And so I'm curious, for you as another mind, how do you do that, man?
Yeah. Well, first, man, you know, I felt that same connection, and it seems like a bromance, right? But it's one of those things. And you're right; it's rare. you don't meet too many people that you just click with off the jump. It's a rare thing, and it's almost as if you recognize that that person, like, maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's like a psychedelic or whatever, you know, but you get that vibe, right? You get the vibe from somebody that's just a good dude or a good person. That's just a cool ass person. And I got that from you off the jump. So much, in fact, that my wife actually was talking about on the plane ride home. She was like, that dude Shane is so cool. He's such a nice guy. I was like, dude, Shane's awesome, right? But so yeah, so hey man, it's the feeling's mutual. As far as me being like playful or goofy, despite all the other things that you know, that have brought me to here, I think really it's just who you surround yourself with, and it's how you see yourself. You know as much as I do, right? You can train every day, and you're not going to be the baddest dude walking the block. You're just not. You can shoot 1 billion rounds a day. You're not going to be the best shot. There's going to be some talented, naturally talented person that's going to be better than you. There's going to be somebody that's smarter than you. You can just do what's best for you, right? So I kind of took it that way. I don't take myself too seriously, man. If I take myself too seriously, it's you almost paint yourself in a corner where you're just that serious dude, man. And maybe it's because I've never really been kind of like a hard person. I've just always been like this quiet, kind of goofy person, man. That's the way you got to do it. The other thing is, like, you know, as much as you want, you know, as you get older, you get more frustrations, man. You start carrying on a few more rocks in your rucksack, right? Your backpack gets heavier. You start to get kind of crusty and salty, you know, like that old crusty old man, like like Walt from Gran Torino, right? But I have a wife, man, and she keeps me square. She reminds me that hey, look, man, it's not that serious, and you gotta stop getting so upset about things. And it's easy for me, man, maybe because whatever I'm diagnosed with, you get the anxiety, you get really easily irritable. You see chaos, or you see people making a deal out of nothing, and it just really gets under your system, man. You have somebody who doesn't come from that, and she reminds you, like, hey, man, it'll be all right, you know, and like just appreciate what is here right now, and that's it, man. You know, I live every day just really excited to see my kids. I live every day excited for the challenge. I started with a great positive mindset, in the sense that, like, okay, man, I got shit to do, and I'm gonna try to get after it. You know, obviously you get those obstacles, you get those impediments along the way, those speed bumps that are trying to get you to stop it. But man, if you look at it like a game, which is what this is, it's like the game of life, you just got to pivot and roll with it. Fuck, man, what are you going to do? At the end of the day, man, if you stub your toe, you drop your keys, break your phone, and you get into a car accident, what the hell is being mad about it going to do? Oh, and by the way, your kid just threw a fucking football through the television. Now you got a $2,000 television you gotta fix. Like, at the end of the day, what's being mad going to change? Absolutely nothing. So you know what? Maybe the perspective is, shit, man, in 2 years, this is going to be funny. What a shitty day this was. So you just got to kind of roll with it, man. That's how I approach it.
I love that, man. I think that's that perspective is so helpful, and I think it's gonna help a lot of people hearing that out there who are, you know, really struggling. And that's really my my intention with the whole podcast in general, is to get all these different perspectives about life and about reality and how we deal with these things and what it all means. And you know, we don't all have the answers, but I feel like we all have a little piece of the answer. And if we can find a venue, hopefully this might be one of those venues where all these little pieces can come into play, and then the listener who listens to it can just string along, you know, whatever particular meaning it has for them to improve their life. That's what I'm going for. If I can create one positive ripple out there with this thing, that's good. And, you know, I think that's you know, such a good thing. Thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate it, pal, and it's really
I
good to see
appreciate
you.
you, Shane. I really do, man. And you know, you're a leader, man. You really are. You know, just your, you know, it's not just a podcast, man. Like you said, you know, your goal is to help people, and you're leading that effort through whatever medium and whatever avenue you can do that for, man. And it's awesome. You know, I forget where I heard it before. It's an old Swahili proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And you're absolutely leading the pack when it comes to not only just trying to help people and being a positive light and a positive beacon, but just knowing you and, like you said, right, just keeping tabs on whether it's through the phone, through social media, and just meeting you that one day, man, seeing what you're trying to do, not only for people, everyday people, but for what you're trying to do for the troops out there, what you're trying to do for people, and understanding and how to help people that may be suffering from PTSD or trying to get really the optimal mental performance out of themselves. And you're leading that effort, man, and it doesn't go unnoticed. People here see it. I talk about you all the time, man, and just keep on doing what you're doing, man. I really hope to see you and roll with you again, brother. And I hope that my kids can meet who Shane LeMaster is and who Callie LeMaster is.
Yeah, right on, man. I can't wait. Like I said, I'll be starting this PhD in the fall, but I definitely want to take some trips out to DC. I'll be doing social work, but a lot of the social work stuff that we do is towards legislative policy reform. So who knows, I might be taking some trips out to Capitol Hill and talking with some politicians, trying to educate them on the right thing to do as far as child welfare. And I'll certainly stop by and would love to train with you guys.
Brothers, there's an open door for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, man.
Nice. I appreciate it, man. Thanks again for coming on the podcast. And if our listeners want to find your website for the compound, can you go over that real quick?
Yeah, man. So on the web, we're at www.thecompoundsilverspring.com. Instagram, The Compound Silver Spring. Twitter, Compound_Silver. We're on Facebook as well. Just check us out, man. You know, we're trying to, you know, our tagline is #RiseWith It. It's not just this thing where the Kraken rises up from the sea. We're really trying to change the martial arts culture when it comes to business. We want to get rid of kind of corporate McDonald's-like products, and we want to provide and serve the community and serve the people, which is what I think martial arts should be doing. We want to rise up against that shit. So please check us out, man. Visit if you can.
Right on. Let's start a movement. All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Shane.